For every project or product that you're going to make, you need to capture the cost of making that product. This covers several areas, all of which are very important. One is Cots, which stands for commercial off the shelf. These are components that you purchase from a vendor. The other, custom parts. These, for example, with this joystick are the 3D printed parts. So in here, a Cots would be this little rubber top, and custom parts would be the slider itself and the enclosure itself. The other part, and probably the most important, is the HUT. This is the human unit time. This is the labor. This is your time to put in to make a product. And I will tell you, it is the number one cost for making anything in small scale manufacturing. The other thing that do not forget are the miscellaneous items. Okay, let's go into a little more detail on each of these. For the Cots, you have to remember everything. You want to know that this board costs a certain amount, this board a certain amount, the joystick itself, the wires. Don't forget the cost of wires and solder. Those are all part of your off-the-shelf component costs. The fasteners, the screws here. So don't forget the little things on this. You want to remember joysticks, you want to remember USB cables, the cost of solder, the cost of glue. All those little things add up, and you need to record the per piece cost for each of those. So that's Cots. For custom parts, in small scale manufacturing and in the stuff that I do, it's primarily 3D printed. So this is a part that gets 3D printed. This is another part that's 3D printed, and the overall enclosure is 3D printed. What you want is determine a dollar per minute time for your 3D printing and stick to it. Okay, there is a misnomer that 3D printing is super cheap or free. It's neither. It may be inexpensive, especially compared to injection molding and things like that, but it is certainly not free. You have the cost of the equipment, you have the cost of the filament, you have the time it takes to print, you have wear and tear on the machine. The machine will fail at some point, usually when you're in the middle of a big production run. I teach from experience there. So make sure you come up with a product to basically pay your machine and your materials. In my case, I use about 10 cents a minute, and I stick to it. So if this part takes 50 minutes to print, this is a $5 part. So make sure to do that on all your custom parts, especially your 3D stuff. And for your, if you're designing something else and you're cutting wood, or you're laser cutting or CNC machining, any of those things, you want to have a timing and a price on. For example, my CNC machines are valued much higher per minute because they are much more expensive pieces of equipment, and their disposable things like mill bits are very expensive. So don't forget that. Human unit time. Okay, this is the one where you will underprice yourself. And I learned a very, very valuable lesson from a group of machinists, professional machinists. And from that group, I learned that they time every process to the second. So when you are doing something, time every process down to the second. How long does it take you to cut these wires? How long does it take to strip the ends of the wires? How long does it take for you to solder this stick to this board? How long does it take so on and so forth. It seems very, very tedious, but it's very important because labor is your number one cost when trying to develop inexpensive small scale devices. What you want to do is get those timings and get them to round up to a minute, add another 10 or 20% because something's going to go wrong, and say, okay, this entire thing at the end of the day takes 30 minutes, for example. Figure out what your minute rate is. And again, be conservative, meaning go on the high end. You are not trying to do this for free. Maybe you are, but most of us are not trying to do it for free. So determine a fair labor price that you want to come up with. This could be any sort of range. I don't go too crazy, but figure out something. A good way to do this, a simple way, is to say I want to make, let's say, $50,000 a year on a quote unquote real job. Divide that by 52 and divide that by 40 and then divide that by 60, and you've got a per minute cost for your labor. So what's that? 50,000 divided by 52 divided by 40 divided by 60. So that's telling me I should be charging 40 cents a minute for my time. So if this particular project took 30 minutes, that means there's $12 of labor in this device. Miscellaneous. Okay. Boxes cost money. Tape costs money. Paper costs money. Postage, every time I buy more postage, it seems to be going up. Those are all components that you want to figure in with your price. And they could be pretty significant. A box might cost $1. And you say, well, it's only $1, but if you're trying to sell a $30 product, $1 means a lot. The tape, the time it takes to label things, which rolls up a little bit into your human unit time, and I'll talk more about shipping later on. But don't forget all those little things, because they'll get you. They will very quickly accelerate the cost of building these devices. Again, my goal is to produce fair market value products on a small scale. And in order to do that, I need to know exactly what my Cots are, exactly what my custom parts are, my human unit time down to the minute, and then any miscellaneous costs.